Let me just back up a little bit to include a little bit of the history of the abortion movement in America, which I'm sure is mirrored in many respects in New Zealand, and you'll be able to throw out the differences. But many of you may know, you're my age or thereabouts, which, do you remember back in the 60s when population explosion was the big, big thing? There's millions poured in America about, oh, the population explosion, the end is coming. Now, you may not quite realize that the whole population explosion movement really grew out of the eugenics movement, which got a little embarrassed with this guy called Hitler. Kind of went a little bit too extreme with trying to limit the quality and quantity and quality of people born into the world. Well, the American eugenicists decided to revamp that, and they renamed their birth control society Planned Parenthood, and they started talking about population control as not something to try to eliminate the poor, but since the poor needed our help to get boosted up, they just need more birth control and other things. So population control, and population controllers really, really wanted legalized abortion, okay? And they're pouring lots of money into it, and one of the first things they did, Lawrence Lader, who was a partner with Bernard Nathanson, who you saw just a moment ago, and a lover of Margaret Sanger's, he is the one who went personally to Betty Friedan, who's written The Feminine Mystique, which is about women, finding their equality in the marketplace. And she didn't talk anything about reproductive rights in Feminine Mystique. But she was beginning to form now, the National Organization of Women, and later went to her and said, you need to make abortion rights a part of this new feminism. Because a woman needs a right to control her own body, and you can raise a lot of money. And hey, I got a lot of connections with Rockefeller Foundation, Ford Foundation, and hey, feminists are going to get a lot of support if you buy into helping promote abortion. And so this is a little bit of the history. And so abortion in the Supreme Court focused on, the population controllers needed to have women wanting it. They needed the voice of women saying, we want this, in order to push it on the rest of society and for Planned Parenthood to start getting more funding so we could put all the clinics in the black ghettos, because that's where they focus putting their abortion clinics and birth control clinics, is because they're targeting the poor. So it's important to lay that groundwork, that there's multiple levels of the abortion debate, multiple ideologies, but fundamentally underlying it all is the same philosophy of Pharaoh when he saw there's too many Jews and they might threaten our power someday. And the elites, those with the money, and this is one reason we have such trouble in America, is because the Republican Party, which is presumptively the pro-life party nowadays, the Republican Party back in the 60s were the ones pushing for abortion. The Rockefeller types, the big money, the Eastern Republicans, they were the ones promoting birth control and abortion, and this is a social engineering solution to creating a better world, as we need to control the quality of people born. So then through the 60s, the Democrats became very confused about moral and sexual issues, and they became the promoting feminism and abortion. But the Republicans, they were like, well, we're all fine with abortion, until Reagan came along and says, well, I can bring in the Christian right, and the Rockefeller types are saying, well, that's fine, you can talk pro-life, just don't do anything pro-life. And so that's been largely what a lot of the Republican Party does. So Republican Party is kind of half with us. There are the true social conservative Republicans who really this is important to, and there's a lot of them who say, I'm pro-life, but they're not really going to spill any political blood, and they don't want anything significant to happen. So one of the reasons I'm really getting into that is there's actually, in my analysis, and you don't have to use this terminology, but it's important to think this way. In Speech 101, they probably have that, some equivalent to that here in New Zealand. First thing you learn is understand your audience, right? So you have to do good audience analysis. And there's 4 groups, and I'm going to call them pro-life, or anti-abortion, and pro-choice, and pro-abortion. Pro-life is a person whose heart is on the baby, and in their mind they think abortion is a moral issue, it destroys an innocent life, and their heart bleeds for the baby who's lost an abortion. In anti-abortion, you can be two of these at once, okay? Anti-abortion, your heart is on the woman, and in your mind you think abortion hurts women. So we can be both pro-life and anti-abortion, okay? And that's where I'm at. That's where I've kind of grown. I started out pro-life and I became more anti-abortion as I learned, holy cow, what's going on here, okay? So you can be both of these at once. The pro-choice person, their heart is on the woman, and they think that abortion helps women. The average pro-choice person out there may not like that abortion destroys a human life. They feel a little queasy about that. That's why they don't want to see pictures of aborted babies, because they've hardened their hearts to the fact that abortion destroys a human life because I've chosen, well, I got to stand with the woman, okay? And I'm going to stand with her. Or maybe they have a loved one, someone in their family who's had an abortion, and they say, oh, you pro-lifers, you want me to condemn abortion, but if I condemn abortion, then I'm condemning Susie, and she made the best decision she could at the time, and I'm not going to do it. Okay? So they're, maybe more often than not, tacitly pro-life. They prefer not to see abortions. They're the ones for whom phrases like make abortion rare really appeals. Like, yeah, safe, legal, and rare. Oh yeah, we can try to discourage it. So the pro-choicer is someone that we can actually dialogue with, especially if you're anti-abortion. If you're anti-abortion message, I care about women, you care about women, but did you know that abortion hurts women this way? They say, oh, I didn't know that. And so what's interesting is that, and I've seen this in my own relationships with people I've known who were pro-choice, that as they begin to question, abortion hurts women this way or that, oh, I didn't realize they had that much severity. And also an important part of this, they already know abortion's at least an ugly experience. So you're not trying to get them to turn around 180 degrees and decide that abortion's, from thinking abortion's a great vacation to abortion being, you're convincing them that abortion, it's a negative experience, but hey, it's even more negative than I thought before. And so you're just helping them move in the same direction that they're already oriented. So it's an easier path. But once they, as I said before, they harden their hearts to the baby, they feel torn by the political debate, you have to choose which side are you on, for the baby or the woman. And they buy into that and they decide, well, I guess I choose for the woman. They harden their hearts to the baby. They don't want to hear about the baby because you're just making them cognitive dissonance. Don't do that to me. Okay? But if they begin to realize that abortion hurts women, pretty soon their heart begins to thaw over here and they start saying, well, if abortion hurts women, why are we killing babies? Because there's a certain amount of pragmatism to the decision, well, there's an injustice either way, one's going to suffer, and maybe it's too early before the baby's able to think or do its ABCs or anything, whatever. They're able to ignore this because they choose this. The woman that is facing them in front of them, they choose for her. So their hearts thaw. Now, the fourth group is the pro-abortionist. The pro-abortionist, their heart's not on the woman. They say they're on the woman. They talk the pro-choice game. But the pro-abortionist is the social engineer, the population controller, the one who wants to eliminate the poor, especially this woman here who, she's poor, she seems to have drug abuse problems, she's probably not going to be a good mother, and by golly, we need to make sure she has an abortion. And we'll manipulate, we'll be friends with her, but we're going to manipulate her into having an abortion, and if she's been coming in here pressured by her parents, that's good. We'll get on the side of the parents and we'll help push her into the abortion. Okay? So the social engineering kind, when they see the research about how abortion hurts women, their response is, no, that's not true, they're making this up. Because they want it to look like abortion's beneficial to them, because they're trying to sell a product here. They see that every abortion is one less child, getting us down towards the 500 million people mark, right? And we got to reduce the carbon footprint, whatever it is, whatever the motivations are. They aren't thinking about what's in the best interest of this woman. They're thinking about what's in the best interest of society, what's in the best interest of creating our man-made utopia. And for our man-made utopia, because we don't believe in God. I mean, if you believe in God, then you don't believe in a man-made utopia. You believe in God's going to somehow bring the kingdom. Okay, it's not ours. But those who've abandoned God, they're going to create their own utopia. And that's why they really do see themselves as good, noble people who are simply trying to save the rest of us from not being quite as brilliant as they are. Okay? But they're, they see themselves as really, the Ted Turners of the world, they really see themselves in a very, I'm just trying to bring good into the world. As the Archbishop described this guy with his 10 posts, he legitimately thinks that those 10 commandments would really bring about a man-made utopia, right? So, how do you tell the difference between someone who's pro-abortion and pro-choice? A guy who did sidewalk counseling and went up and talked to the protesters on the other side. He said he went around asking those who were on the side of for abortion what they thought about forced abortions in China. And he said split about 50-50. About half said that's terrible, that's wrong. So they were pro-choice. They were defending abortion rights, as they called it, but they think they're doing it on behalf of women. They care about women. The others said, well, they've got population control problems, and that's their internal there. So they see it as a social engineering tool. I don't know how to address those people other than you have to try to bring them to know and love God before you're going to convert them on abortion. But those who are truly pro-choice, which I think represent the majority of people in the polls who respond, well, what do you think? Well, I guess I'm pro-choice. They are very open to and concerned about women. And if you start talking to them the pro-woman message, the anti-abortion message, not just the pro-life, but the anti-abortion message, and in a certain sense, sometimes, maybe even the pro-life message has to be secondary to the pro-woman message. Because I'll tell you, here's an interesting thing. I don't have to talk about the rights of the child. Because when I instead talk about the women who grieve, my child died in that abortion, she's giving personhood to the child. She's bringing all the moral questions into it. The science, the heart beats at 3 weeks. That's a true fact, it's an important fact, but it's so far less powerful than a woman up here saying, but my child died in that abortion. That brings ownership. It's not the science, it's the relationship, okay? And it resonates with what's going on. Now, when abortion was legalized, and the abortion proponents framed the debate, and they framed the debate as, whose side are you on? Whose rights should prevail? The rights of a fetus or the rights of a woman? Okay? The pro-life movement in America made a huge mistake, and I guess, we didn't have a lot of foresight there, but we accepted that frame of debate, and we responded, well, the rights of life, of the baby, are more important than the selfish needs of the woman. And as soon as you begin to characterize one as selfish and the other as, now you've fallen into the debate, you got to pick between sides. The proper response, okay, at least I argue, and I think hopefully you will agree, but this is after 20/20 hindsight. The proper response is that the rights and well-being of the woman and child are intertwined by God in such a way that you can't hurt one without hurting the other. You can't help one without helping both. And we're here to care for both the women and the child, and we're not going to sacrifice one for the other. And those who say they're going to sacrifice one for the other, they're going to hurt both. Because God has designed the woman, her body, her spirit, her heart, to protect the child, to mold the child, to bring the child into the world, be prepared to emotionally bond with it from the very moment she discovers she's pregnant. And when you rip that baby away from her, she's still a mother now who's lost her baby.